In the infinite darkness of space, light has always been a messenger of truth. For centuries, astronomers have relied on tiny flickers of light in the night sky to map the universe, decode its secrets, and trace the origins of cosmic phenomena. But on a cold, silent night, the James Webb Space Telescope picked up a signal that defied every expectation. A set of lights emanating from a region of space where no natural explanation seemed possible. These weren't the random flares of distant stars or the steady glow of galaxies. No, these lights pulsed, deliberately, almost like a cosmic beacon. At first, the detection seemed like a glitch, a mere anomaly caused by Webb's sensitive infrared instruments. After all, the telescope is so powerful, it can capture the faint glow of stars formed over 13 billion years ago. But when multiple readings confirmed the phenomenon, the scientific community was forced to confront a chilling question: what exactly was sending out this light? The mysterious source was identified near an object already shrouded in speculation: 3I Atlas, a fast-moving interstellar body hurtling through our solar system. This wasn't just any space rock. It was the third confirmed interstellar object ever observed passing through our cosmic neighborhood, following the infamous Oumuamua and the enigmatic Borisov comet. Scientists were already struggling to explain its strange trajectory and composition, but now, with the Webb telescope's detection of artificial-looking lights, the mystery has deepened to an unprecedented level. In the world of astronomy, extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. NASA, the European Space Agency, and independent researchers immediately began analyzing the data, trying to determine whether these signals were a natural phenomenon or something far more profound. Could this be evidence of technological activity, a sign that another civilization, somewhere in the vastness of the universe, is reaching out? Or was it a misunderstood quirk of cosmic physics that our current knowledge simply can't explain? The stakes couldn't be higher. For decades, humanity has stared at the sky, searching for answers to the age-old question, are we alone? And now, perhaps for the first time, there is a tangible hint, a possibility that we may not be the only intelligent species navigating the stars. But to understand the full gravity of this discovery, we must first delve into the incredible capabilities of the James Webb Space Telescope itself. Unlike its predecessor, the Hubble, Webb was designed to see the invisible, capturing infrared light from the farthest reaches of the cosmos. Its 21-foot gold-coated mirror allows it to detect heat signatures so faint they would be invisible to any other instrument. It's like having a telescope that can read the heat of a candle flame from millions of miles away. When the data from Webb's instruments first indicated an anomaly, mission scientists were cautious. Space is filled with strange, fleeting phenomena: gamma-ray bursts, fast radio signals, and even gravitational lensing effects that can create the illusion of lights appearing where none exist. But the pattern recorded near 3I Atlas was different. It repeated with mathematical precision, almost like a coded message. The pulses came in intervals that matched prime numbers, a mathematical sequence often considered a hallmark of intelligent design. This detail, once leaked to the public, ignited a firestorm of speculation online. Forums, social media, and even mainstream news outlets lit up with theories ranging from alien spacecraft to secret military projects. Scientists, however, urged restraint, warning that extraordinary patterns can sometimes emerge from entirely natural processes. But behind closed doors, even the most skeptical researchers couldn't ignore the nagging possibility that this might be first contact. As the story unfolded, governments and space agencies found themselves grappling with difficult decisions. Should the discovery be made fully public or carefully controlled to prevent panic and misinformation? Whispers began to circulate about classified briefings, hidden data, and high-level meetings among world leaders. The idea of extraterrestrial intelligence isn't just a scientific question, it's a geopolitical one, with implications for security, religion, and the very identity of our species. Meanwhile, astronomers race to gather more information. Observatories around the world turn their instruments towards 3I Atlas, hoping to confirm Webb's findings. The object itself was moving fast, traveling at speeds that would soon carry it beyond the reach of detailed observation. Time was running out, and every passing moment felt like watching history slip through humanity's fingers. But what exactly is 3I Atlas? To answer that, we need to look back at the rare and dramatic history of interstellar visitors to our solar system. The first was Oumuamua, discovered in 2017, which sparked intense debate over its elongated shape and unusual trajectory. Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb famously suggested it might be a probe sent by an alien civilization, a claim met with both fascination and fierce criticism. 2 years later, the comet Borisov passed through, behaving more like a traditional comet, but still offering tantalizing clues about planetary systems beyond our own. But 3I Atlas, however, seems to combine the mysteries of both predecessors while adding entirely new puzzles. Its surface appears unusually reflective, suggesting a composition unlike anything seen in our solar system. Its motion is erratic, influenced by forces that don't fit neatly into current gravitational models. And now, with the detection of these unexplained lights, it stands at the center of perhaps the most important scientific mystery of our time. As the Webb telescope continues to send back data, scientists face a daunting challenge: separating signal from noise, fact from speculation, and truth from fear. Are these lights truly artificial? Could they be the result of a natural process we simply don't understand yet? Perhaps a bizarre interaction of cosmic radiation and exotic materials? Or is this the first undeniable evidence that we are not alone in the universe? The answers remain elusive, but one thing is certain: humanity has crossed the threshold. The moment we looked into the void and saw a light shining back, everything changed. Our understanding of our place in the cosmos will never be the same. And as we'll discover in the coming chapters of this unfolding story, the deeper we dig into the mystery of 3I Atlas, the stranger and more unsettling the truth becomes. As the mysterious lights continue to appear in Webb's data streams, a small group of scientists began working tirelessly behind the scenes, attempting to decode what they were seeing. These weren't just random flickers or brief chaotic flashes. The lights followed a precise, repeating rhythm, a rhythm so deliberate that it sent chills down the spines of those who first analyzed it. At NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, deep inside a secure laboratory, a team of astronomers pored over the readings, cross-referencing them with data from other observatories. They ruled out the usual suspects first. Could it be a glitch in the instrumentation? Webb's sensors were the most advanced ever built, but even the finest technology is not immune to error. However, after multiple diagnostic tests, every reading came back clean. Webb was functioning perfectly. This wasn't a false alarm. Something out there was truly generating light in a consistent, intentional pattern, and it was doing so near 3I Atlas, an object already considered one of the strangest interstellar visitors ever recorded. To understand the gravity of this, we need to consider how rare interstellar objects truly are. Our solar system is vast, and while it may seem like space is constantly buzzing with activity, the truth is that most objects we observe are bound by our sun's gravity. Asteroids, comets, and planets all move in predictable orbits that have existed for millions or even billions of years. But when an object enters our system from deep interstellar space, it behaves differently. Its path is hyperbolic, a trajectory that allows it to swoop in and then escape forever, never to return. This makes each detection incredibly significant, a brief, fleeting chance to study material from other star systems. Oumuamua, the first such discovery, sent shockwaves through the scientific community,
because it was unlike anything ever seen before. It wasn't shaped like a typical comet or asteroid. Instead, it was oddly elongated, like a gigantic cosmic cigar tumbling end over end. Even stranger, it exhibited non-gravitational acceleration, meaning it sped up in ways that couldn't be explained by gravity alone. Some scientists suggested it was outgassing, like a comet releasing gas and dust, but no such emissions were ever detected. Others speculated it might even be an alien probe, a possibility that many dismissed at the time, but that has never been fully ruled out. Then came Borisov, a more traditional comet, but still undeniably interstellar in origin. It behaved much like the comets we're familiar with, though its composition offered tantalizing hints about the diversity of planetary systems beyond our own. These discoveries were already rewriting textbooks. But 3I ATLS? It was something else entirely. From the moment it was detected, astronomers knew it was unusual. Its brightness fluctuated unpredictably, suggesting a surface that was far from uniform. Its trajectory shifted subtly as though affected by forces other than gravity, just like Oumuamua before it, but in a different, even more perplexing way. And now, with Webb's discovery of the mysterious lights, 3I ATLS has become the center of an unprecedented investigation. What makes these lights so compelling isn't just their appearance, but their behavior. The pulses occur in prime number intervals, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, a sequence often associated with intelligent communication. In nature, patterns like this are exceedingly rare. Stars flicker irregularly. Pulsars emit steady, rhythmic signals. But prime number sequences? Those don't happen by chance. When this information leaked to the public, it triggered a wave of excitement and fear. Across social media platforms, hashtags related to 3I ATLS began trending. Conspiracy theorists claimed it was proof of a secret government cover-up. Skeptics argued it was all a misunderstanding, perhaps a natural phenomenon we simply didn't comprehend yet. But among professional astronomers, the mood was far more complicated. The potential implications were staggering. If the lights were indeed artificial, it would mean that somewhere out there, an advanced civilization had created technology capable of sending signals across the vastness of space, technology powerful enough to be detected by Webb. However, not everyone agreed that the lights must be artificial. Some scientists urged caution, pointing out that cosmic physics is full of surprises. There are phenomena we've only begun to understand. Magnetic reconnection events in distant magnetospheres that produce strange pulsing emissions. Quantum effects that cause light to behave in unexpected ways near exotic materials. Even hypothetical processes involving dark matter or dark energy that might one day explain what we're seeing. Despite these natural possibilities, the mathematical precision of the signals kept nagging at the minds of researchers. It wasn't just the sequence itself, but also the way the pulses varied slightly over time, almost like they were adapting or evolving. This hinted at something far more dynamic than a static natural process. As the debate raged, governments began to take notice. In Washington, D.C., a series of classified meetings were held between NASA officials, military representatives, and members of Congress. While the official line remained that there was no evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence, behind closed doors, the tone was far more urgent. If the lights were indeed artificial, the implications for national security were enormous. Could it be a probe, silently observing us from the edge of the solar system? Or worse, could it be a message directed at Earth, one that we were only just beginning to decode?
Meanwhile, in Europe, the European Space Agency coordinated with observatories across the continent to gather independent data. Radio telescopes were brought into the effort, scanning the region of space around 3I-Atlas for any radio frequency emissions that might accompany the light pulses. If a signal were detected in both optical and radio wavelengths, it would be nearly impossible to dismiss as a coincidence. As of now, no such radio signals have been conclusively identified. But the search continues, with each new dataset bringing a mix of hope and frustration. The lack of a radio component doesn't rule out intelligence, however. It's entirely possible that an advanced civilization might use communication methods we can't even imagine, ones that don't rely on the familiar electromagnetic spectrum. Back in the scientific community, one of the most intriguing debates centered on the possibility that the lights were a form of propulsion system. Some researchers propose that 3I-Atlas might not be a natural object at all, but rather a craft or probe, and that the lights were byproducts of its propulsion technology. This theory gained traction when detailed measurements of the object's motion revealed tiny, consistent deviations from its predicted path. Deviations that could, in theory, be explained by some kind of directed thrust. If this were true, it would mean that we weren't just witnessing a distant signal, but an active vehicle maneuvering through our solar system for purposes unknown. The thought was as exhilarating as it was terrifying. As Webb continued its observations, a pattern began to emerge not just in the lights themselves, but in their timing relative to the object's trajectory. Some pulses seemed to occur at key moments, such as when 3I-Atlas passed near certain gravitational boundaries. This suggested a level of strategic control, as though whoever or whatever was behind the lights was carefully navigating through our cosmic neighborhood. This is where the mystery deepens even further. If the lights are a form of communication, who are these speaking to? If they are a propulsion system, where is the object heading and why? The answers remain frustratingly out of reach. But one thing is clear: humanity is witnessing something unprecedented, something that challenges our assumptions about life, technology, and the very nature of the universe itself. And as the investigation continues, the pressure on scientists, governments, and even ordinary citizens grows. Everyone wants to know the truth, but are we ready to face it? The discovery of the lights near 3I-Atlas had initially been known only to a handful of scientists and government officials. But in the modern age, secrets rarely stay hidden for long. Despite NASA's best efforts to keep the information classified, fragments of the story began to leak, first as whispers in obscure astronomy forums, then as rumors circulating through social media, and finally as mainstream headlines that gripped the world. It began with a single blurry image, allegedly leaked from within the Webb mission team. The photo showed a faint speck of light against the darkness of space, surrounded by cryptic numeric data. While most people couldn't interpret the raw numbers, those familiar with astronomy quickly realized this wasn't just another star or asteroid. The data contained unusual markers, the kind you'd expect to see from something actively emitting energy rather than passively reflecting sunlight. Within hours, the image went viral. Hashtags like #WebMystery, #3I-Atlas, and #AlienSignal trended globally. News outlets scrambled to verify the claims, while online theorists went into overdrive, speculating wildly about the implications. Some declared it was definitive proof of extraterrestrial life, while others insisted it was a carefully orchestrated hoax. NASA responded with a brief, carefully worded statement, claiming that the anomaly was under investigation and that no conclusions could be drawn at this time. But by then, the damage was done. The genie was out of the bottle. As public interest surged, governments around the world began to take a far more active role. The United Nations held a closed-door emergency session, a rare move usually reserved for global crises like nuclear threats or pandemics.
representatives from major spacefaring nations, including the United States, Russia, China, and members of the European Space Agency, attended the meeting. Behind those sealed doors, diplomats debated how to respond. Should the discovery be treated as a potential security risk, with data restricted to military and intelligence agencies? Or should it be released openly, allowing the entire global scientific community to participate in solving the mystery? Leaked transcripts suggest the discussions were deeply divided. Some nations feared that public disclosure could lead to mass panic or economic chaos. Others argued that keeping the information secret would only breed distrust and conspiracy theories. One unnamed official reportedly stated, "If this is evidence of another civilization, it belongs to all of humanity, not just the countries with the biggest telescopes." Meanwhile, the scientific teams working directly with Webb faced immense pressure. They were ordered to conduct round-the-clock analysis of the light patterns using every available resource to rule out mundane explanations. Supercomputers modeled possible natural scenarios, simulating everything from exotic cometary activity to theoretical quantum phenomena. But time and again, the results came back the same. Nothing fit the data. The light's precision, timing, and placement were unlike anything seen in nature. One breakthrough came when researchers noticed a subtle modulation within the pulses. At first glance, the light seemed to follow simple prime number intervals, as previously reported. But on closer examination, there was an additional layer of complexity, a faint secondary pattern embedded within the main sequence. This pattern didn't correspond to any known natural process. Instead, it resembled encoded information, like the binary language used in computer systems.
When this discovery reached top officials, the reaction was immediate and intense. The possibility that the lights were carrying a message, perhaps even a direct attempt at communication, elevated the stakes to an entirely new level. A joint task force of linguists, mathematicians, and computer scientists was formed to attempt decoding the signal. Among them were experts in cryptography and even specialists in SETI protocols, the long-established guidelines for handling potential extraterrestrial contact. For decades, SETI researchers had theorized about what a genuine signal might look like and how humanity should respond. Now, for the first time, those protocols were being applied to a real-world scenario. Teams worked in secrecy, analyzing the data bit by bit, searching for patterns that might represent numbers, symbols, or even a form of universal logic. As word of this effort leaked, public fascination exploded. Debates raged on television, podcasts, and online forums. Religious leaders weighed in, some embracing the discovery as evidence of a divine plan, others warning that humanity was meddling with forces it didn't understand. Economists predicted wild swings in global markets as investors reacted to the uncertainty. Meanwhile, fringe groups began forming their own interpretations, some proclaiming the lights as a harbinger of salvation, others as a sign of impending doom. The chaos only deepened when independent astronomers began reporting strange anomalies of their own. Observatories in Chile, Hawaii, and South Africa detected unusual fluctuations in nearby regions of space, though none were as distinct as the pulses near 3I/Atlas. Some theorized that these were echoes or secondary signals, perhaps part of a larger network of activity. Others speculated that humanity was witnessing the first stages of a much broader event, one whose full scope was yet to be revealed. During this period, Webb continued its relentless observations. Each new data packet added to the mystery. The lights weren't just repeating, they were changing, evolving over time, as if responding to something. Some scientists likened it to a conversation, with pauses and variations suggesting an interactive component. If true, this would mean that whatever was generating the signals might actually be aware of Webb's presence, or at the very least of Earth's location. The possibility was staggering.
For the first time, humanity wasn't just passively observing the cosmos. It might actually be participating in a dialogue, however indirect and incomprehensible. This raised urgent new questions. If the lights were a message, how should humanity reply? Could a response be safely attempted without knowing who or what was on the other end? And what if the act of replying inadvertently revealed critical information about our planet, such as its location, vulnerabilities, or even the state of our defenses? Within military circles, these questions sparked fierce debates. Some strategists argued that humanity should remain silent, much like prey hiding from a potential predator. Others believed that establishing communication was essential, both for scientific progress and for avoiding misunderstandings that could lead to conflict. In one classified report, a general reportedly warned, "If they've reached out first, they already know we exist. Silence won't save us. The only question now is whether we can understand them before it's too late." While governments wrestled with these dilemmas, ordinary people around the world began to take matters into their own hands. Amateur radio enthusiasts attempted to send their own signals into space, hoping to contribute to the effort, or perhaps to be the first to make contact. Some even claimed to have received mysterious transmissions, though none could be verified. This grassroots activity created a new challenge for authorities, who feared that uncoordinated attempts at communication might interfere with official efforts or even provoke unintended consequences. Amidst the frenzy, a small group of researchers made a startling discovery. By combining Webb's optical data with readings from ground-based instruments, they determined that the light pulses weren't coming directly from 3I/Atlas itself. Instead, they seemed to originate from a point slightly ahead of its trajectory, as if something invisible were guiding or controlling the object through space. This revelation changed everything. If 3I/Atlas was being escorted or controlled by another entity, it meant that humanity was witnessing not just a passive object, but potentially an active mission. Some compared it to a spacecraft towing a probe, while others suggested that it might be a kind of breadcrumb trail designed to lure attention in a specific direction. The implications were terrifying. Was this a reconnaissance mission, a peaceful exploration, or something more sinister? No one could say for sure, but one thing was certain. Humanity was no longer merely an observer of the cosmos. It was now a participant in a game whose rules were unknown, a game played on a scale far beyond anything our species had ever encountered. As these discoveries unfolded, a quiet but profound shift began to occur within the scientific community. Many researchers, once staunchly skeptical of extraterrestrial theories, began to reconsider their positions. Decades of dismissing UFO sightings, ancient alien myths, and popular science fiction now seemed less certain, less secure. The universe, it seemed, was far stranger and more complex than anyone had dared to imagine. And yet, even as humanity grappled with these monumental questions, Webb's instruments continued to record data that would soon reveal an even deeper, more unsettling layer to the mystery. For the lights weren't merely patterns in space. They were changing in direct response to something happening here on Earth. As the mysterious object continued its journey through the darkness of our solar system, its trajectory took it closer to the inner planets, and anticipation within the scientific community began to skyrocket. Observatories worldwide prepared for their chance to capture data as 3I/Atlas swung past. The James Webb Telescope, positioned perfectly with its unparalleled infrared sensitivity, locked on to the object at precisely the right moment.
Then came the breakthrough. Faint glimmers of light were detected near the surface of 3I/Atlas. At first, researchers thought these could be reflections of sunlight bouncing off icy patches or metallic rocks, something entirely natural. But as the telescope gathered more data, the pattern of these lights became increasingly strange. They weren't random, they weren't constant. Instead, they flickered rhythmically, almost as if they were following a coded sequence. This was unlike anything ever observed before in our solar system. The lights pulsed in a way that defied easy explanation. In nature, certain phenomena like pulsars or volcanic eruptions can create periodic flashes of light, but those are on entirely different scales and come from completely different mechanisms. These lights were localized to the object and didn't match any known geological or astrophysical processes. The discovery sent shockwaves through NASA, ESA, and even independent research groups monitoring the event. Suddenly, 3I AT Atlas wasn't just a mysterious interstellar visitor, it might be something far more significant. As speculation ran wild, the public caught wind of the story. Social media exploded with theories ranging from alien spacecraft to ancient artifacts drifting through space. Science communicators scrambled to explain the known facts while carefully avoiding wild conjecture, but the mystery only deepened as more Webb data streamed in. The telescope's infrared sensors revealed that the lights emitted very specific wavelengths, ones that seemed to fall within ranges often associated with artificial sources of illumination. In other words, the pattern looked eerily similar to something deliberately engineered. Behind closed doors, meetings between top scientists became increasingly tense. If these lights truly were artificial, it would be the single most groundbreaking discovery in human history. Entire fields of study, astronomy, physics, biology, even philosophy would be turned upside down overnight. Yet no one wanted to jump to conclusions prematurely. It was vital to rule out every possible natural explanation before announcing anything to the public. The stakes were astronomical. Adding to the intrigue, 3I ATLS's trajectory was not entirely predictable. As it neared certain gravitational boundaries, its path shifted slightly in ways that didn't perfectly align with expected calculations. Normally, small deviations like this could be attributed to outgassing, where frozen material on the object's surface heats up and jets into space, subtly altering its motion. However, the data didn't match the typical signatures of such behavior. The combination of unusual lights and unpredictable motion was unlike anything astronomers had ever seen. Meanwhile, the Webb telescope kept its gaze fixed on the object, capturing data with unparalleled precision. Every flicker, every pulse of light was logged and analyzed. Teams worked around the clock to decode the potential patterns, some even daring to consider whether they could represent a form of communication. Could these pulses be a message? Or were they simply an incidental byproduct of some unknown technology or unknown natural process? Public interest surged to unprecedented levels. News outlets ran continuous coverage, with headlines declaring everything from alien technology to Webb telescope reveals cosmic mystery. Conspiracy theories thrived in online forums, with some people convinced that governments were already in contact with extraterrestrials and hiding the truth. Others believed that the object was a remnant of an ancient interstellar civilization, a kind of cosmic relic drifting through space for millennia. Amid the noise, the scientific community struggled to maintain focus and rigor. As the weeks passed, new details began to emerge. The rhythmic lights weren't just flickering randomly, they seemed to correspond to changes in the object's motion. When the lights intensified, small but measurable accelerations occurred. When they dimmed, the object's trajectory stabilized. This suggested a possible link between the lights and propulsion, an idea that sent shockwaves through mission control centers worldwide. Could 3I AT Atlas be maneuvering itself? If so, this would strongly imply some level of technological sophistication. NASA, ESA, and other space agencies faced a monumental decision. Should they attempt to make contact? Some scientists argued passionately in favor, believing that even a one-way signal could yield priceless information. Others warned of the dangers. If the object was indeed an alien probe or vessel, reaching out blindly could have unpredictable consequences. History was full of examples where first contact between civilizations had gone disastrously wrong, not because of malice, but because of misunderstanding. In the midst of these debates, a secretive task force was reportedly formed. Their mission was to develop a carefully calibrated signal using Earth's most powerful radio telescopes. The idea was to broadcast a simple mathematical sequence, something universally recognizable, like the prime numbers or the digits of pi. This signal would serve as a kind of interstellar handshake, a way of saying, we are intelligent beings seeking communication. At the same time, engineers began to explore whether a robotic probe could be launched to intercept 3I AT Atlas. The window of opportunity was extremely narrow. The object was moving at incredible speeds and would soon slingshot out of range forever. Designing, building, and launching a probe in time would require unprecedented coordination and innovation. But the potential rewards were immeasurable. For the first time in history, humanity might physically examine an artifact from another star system, perhaps even one of alien origin. As plans took shape, public fascination grew ever more intense. Documentaries were commissioned, speculative books soared to bestseller lists, and talk show hosts invited astronomers to discuss the latest developments. The mystery of 3I AT Atlas captured the human imagination like few events ever had. It wasn't just about science, it was about our place in the universe, our hopes and fears, and the profound question of whether we are alone.
Through it all, the Webb telescope continued its silent vigil. Its instruments, peering deep into the void, sent back streams of data that scientists pored over with obsessive dedication. Late one night, a graduate student noticed something extraordinary. The light pulses seemed to align with a mathematical pattern known as the Fibonacci sequence. This pattern, found throughout nature on Earth, from seashells to galaxies, has long fascinated mathematicians and philosophers. Its appearance in the signals from 3I AT-LS was deeply unsettling. If intentional, it would be an unmistakable sign of intelligence. The discovery was kept secret at first, shared only among a select group of researchers. But secrets have a way of leaking, and soon whispers began to spread through the scientific community. By the time the story broke to the public, it caused an international sensation. Suddenly, the mystery was no longer just about a strange object in space, it was about a potential message from another civilization. Governments reacted with a mixture of excitement and caution. Some leaders called for transparency and global cooperation, while others insisted on secrecy, fearing the social and political upheaval such a revelation might cause. Religious groups weighed in as well, interpreting the discovery through the lens of their beliefs. Some saw it as confirmation of divine creation, while others viewed it as a challenge to long-held doctrines. The world was united in awe, but divided in interpretation. As tensions mounted, the countdown to the object's closest approach continued. Scientists knew they had only a limited time to gather data before 3I AT-LS would vanish back into the darkness of interstellar space. Teams worked around the clock, pushing both human and technological limits to their breaking point. Every observation, every calculation could make the difference between unlocking a cosmic mystery and losing it forever. Then, just days before the critical moment, a stunning development occurred. The rhythmic lights suddenly increased in intensity, shining brighter than ever before. Simultaneously, the object's speed began to change dramatically. It was as if 3I AT-LS had activated some kind of propulsion system, deliberately altering its course. The data was clear. This was not a passive rock drifting through space. Something, or someone, was controlling it. Panic and exhilaration rippled through mission control centers worldwide. The object was now on a trajectory that would take it closer to Earth than anyone had dared to imagine. While still safely distant, the approach was close enough to allow unprecedented observations. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, but also a source of immense anxiety. If this was a controlled maneuver, what were the intentions behind it? Was it a greeting, a warning, or something beyond human comprehension? At this point, speculation became unavoidable. Scientists, philosophers, and even world leaders began to publicly acknowledge what many had privately suspected for weeks. 3I AT-LS might be an alien probe, and the lights detected by Webb could be a form of communication or navigation system. The implications were staggering. Humanity stood on the brink of a new era, one that could redefine our understanding of life, the universe, and ourselves. Governments coordinated emergency meetings. Defense organizations assessed potential risks. Religious institutions prepared statements. For ordinary people, the news was both thrilling and terrifying. Streets filled with spontaneous gatherings as people looked up at the night sky, wondering what it all meant. Humanity, for the first time, felt the vastness of the cosmos pressing in on its collective consciousness. As the object drew closer, Webb's instruments reached their peak capacity, capturing every possible detail. The lights now displayed a complex, repeating pattern that defied random chance. Computer algorithms struggled to decode the sequence, running thousands of simulations in search of meaning. Some researchers believed they were on the verge of a breakthrough, while others warned against jumping to conclusions too quickly. Meanwhile, the secretive task force preparing the Earth-based signal faced a critical decision. Should they transmit now, hoping for a response, or wait for more data? The risk was enormous, but the opportunity was slipping away. In the end, a consensus was reached. They would send a simple, universal message, one that any intelligent species could understand. At precisely 00 UTC, the signal was broadcast, beaming across the vastness of space toward 3I ATLS. For long moments, nothing happened. The object continued its silent approach, the lights flickering in their strange, mesmerizing rhythm. Then, against all odds, the pattern changed. The pulses shifted, aligning perfectly with the signal that had just been sent. It was a clear response, an undeniable proof that someone or something out there had heard us. The world erupted in collective astonishment. Scientists wept, crowds cheered. Even the most hardened skeptics were forced to confront the reality of what had just occurred. Humanity was no longer alone. But the mystery was far from solved. The response raised more questions than it answered. What did the lights mean? Why had the object come here? And perhaps most importantly, what would happen next? The pulse of lights across the surface of 3I ATLS now burned with an intensity so bright that even amateur astronomers with modest telescopes could see faint glimmers when they looked to the night sky. Social media exploded with grainy videos, blurry photographs, and unverified claims of UFO sightings. While most of these were false or misinterpretations of natural phenomena, the undeniable truth was that something extraordinary was happening millions of miles away. And for the first time in history, the whole planet was watching a cosmic event unfold in real time, and everyone had their own interpretation of what it meant.
In major cities around the world, massive crowds gathered in public squares, staring at giant screens broadcasting the live feed from the James Webb Telescope. People wept openly, clutched each other's hands, and prayed as the lights continued their mysterious dance. Governments struggled to maintain order as the news cycle shifted into overdrive. This was no longer just a scientific discovery. It had become a cultural phenomenon, an event that transcended borders, religions, and political systems. Humanity was united by wonder and fear, a global family waiting for answers. Behind the scenes, the scientific community was pushing itself to its absolute limits. Webb's infrared instruments were now operating at maximum capacity, streaming an unprecedented amount of data to Earth. Supercomputers crunched the numbers around the clock, attempting to decode the patterns of light. The Fibonacci sequence discovery had been confirmed repeatedly, and now more complex mathematical structures were emerging from the data. These patterns were so precise and elegant that they seemed almost impossible to attribute to random chance. Dr. Ilara Singh, one of the leading astrophysicists on the task force, stared at the data on her monitor with trembling hands. "This isn't just a signal," she whispered to her colleagues. "It's structured information. It's language." Her statement sent shockwaves through the team. If true, it meant that 3I IATS was actively attempting to communicate, not just broadcasting noise, but sending coherent messages. The question was, could humans decipher it in time? The countdown to closest approach was now less than 2 weeks. The object's trajectory had been altered yet again, this time with deliberate precision. Whatever controlled it was clearly aware of its position relative to Earth
and was adjusting accordingly. For some, this was proof of peaceful intent, a careful maneuver to avoid collision while maximizing observation opportunities. For others, it was deeply unsettling. What if this was reconnaissance before a more direct encounter? What if humanity was being studied, evaluated, perhaps even judged? At the United Nations, an emergency assembly convened. Delegates from every member nation gathered to discuss a unified response. Tensions ran high as representatives debated how to proceed. Some called for immediate, transparent communication with the public, arguing that secrecy would only breed panic and conspiracy theories. Others advocated for strict control of information, fearing mass hysteria and social collapse. Old rivalries flared as nations accused each other of hiding data or developing secretive technologies to exploit the situation. The fragile dream of global unity seemed on the verge of shattering, even as the world faced its most profound collective challenge. Meanwhile, the Signal Task Force pressed forward with its decoding efforts. Day after day, breakthroughs came in small incremental steps. A pattern resembling prime numbers, a sequence mirroring the spiral structure of galaxies. Gradually, a framework of understanding began to emerge. It appeared that the lights were conveying a universal mathematical foundation, perhaps as a prelude to more complex information. It was as if whoever or whatever was behind 3i IATS understood that mathematics was the one true universal language, a bridge between entirely different forms of life. But there was another, more unsettling discovery buried deep within the data. Hidden among the mathematical patterns were irregularities, pulses that didn't fit the overall structure. At first, they were dismissed as noise or interference, but as researchers analyzed them more closely, a chilling possibility emerged. These irregular signals might represent a secondary message, something more specific and directed. Some scientists began to suspect that these pulses were coordinates, a kind of map pointing to a location somewhere within our solar system. If true, it suggested that 3i IATS wasn't just a messenger. It might be a guide, leading us to something entirely different. The implications were staggering. Could there be another object hidden nearby, perhaps in the asteroid belt or even orbiting one of the outer planets? If so, why had it remained undetected until now? And what purpose did it serve? Theories abounded. Some imagined a hidden alien outpost, observing Earth from a distance for centuries. Others speculated about ancient artifacts left behind by long-dead civilizations. The most optimistic believed it could be a repository of knowledge, a cosmic library waiting to be discovered. But the more pessimistic feared something far darker, a trap, a lure designed to draw humanity into danger. As debates raged, the countdown continued relentlessly. With just 10 days remaining, the Webb telescope captured its most detailed images yet. The surface of 3i IATS was unlike anything seen before. It appeared to be composed of interlocking structures, almost like panels or tiles, rather than the chaotic, irregular formations typical of natural asteroids or comets. Even more astonishing, the light seemed to emanate from beneath these panels, as if illuminating through a semi-transparent shell. The resemblance to advanced technology was impossible to ignore. Though scientists avoided the word ship, the comparison hung unspoken in every mind. The revelation sent shockwaves through the global community. Stock markets plunged as uncertainty gripped the world economy. Religious leaders issued statements urging calm and reflection. In some places, mass gatherings turned into riots as fear overwhelmed reason. Governments quietly began contingency planning for worst-case scenarios, including the possibility of hostile intent. Militaries were placed on heightened alert, though most experts agreed that any conflict with a civilization capable of interstellar travel would be hopelessly one-sided. Amid the chaos, a remarkable act of cooperation emerged. For the first time in history, space agencies from rival nations agreed to share real-time data openly. NASA, ESA, Roscosmos, CNSA, and others pooled their resources to form a unified command structure dedicated solely to understanding and responding to the mystery of 3i IATS. Scientists who had once been competitors now work side by side, driven by a shared sense of purpose. The project was given a name, Operation Sentinel.
Within Operation Sentinel, a subgroup known as the Decipher Team focused exclusively on cracking the potential language within the light patterns. Using advanced AI systems, they began to detect repetitions and structures that hinted at more complex meanings. Late one night, a breakthrough occurred. A young linguist, Dr. Miguel Alvarez, noticed that certain sequences mirrored the structure of basic chemical formulas: hydrogen, oxygen, carbon. Excitedly, he proposed that the lights might be conveying fundamental information about life itself. If true, this meant the message wasn't just mathematical, it was biological. Whoever sent it wanted to communicate about living systems, perhaps even about Earth itself. But just as hope surged, a disturbing anomaly was detected. A new series of pulses appeared, completely different from anything seen before. These were erratic, chaotic, almost desperate. When converted into audio, they sounded eerily like a distress call. The realization hit the team like a thunderbolt. What if 3i/Atlas wasn't just sending a message? It was sending a message about itself. Could it be damaged, lost, or even fleeing from something far more dangerous? The possibility introduced a terrifying new dimension to the mystery. Theories shifted once again. Perhaps 3i/Atlas wasn't a threat at all, but a victim. Maybe it was seeking refuge in our solar system, hoping for assistance from any intelligent life it might encounter. Alternatively, it could be an autonomous probe following ancient programming and warning others of an approaching danger. The implications were staggering. If there was something powerful enough to harm or destroy a vessel of this sophistication, what might it mean for Earth? With just 7 days remaining before closest approach, the world stood on edge. Global broadcasts carried live updates every hour, while crowds gathered outside observatories and space agency headquarters. In classrooms, children stared wide-eyed at screens as teachers tried to explain the enormity of what was happening. Artists painted, poets wrote, musicians composed, all trying to capture the indescribable feeling of living through a moment that would define human history. Then, without warning, the lights changed again. This time, the pattern was unmistakable. It matched the signal Earth had sent days earlier, but with additions, expansions, clarifications, almost like a reply to a conversation. The message was longer, more complex, and filled with mathematical elegance. Computer models struggled to keep up as the Decipher team worked frantically to translate it. Hours later, they had a partial interpretation. The message contained a sequence of numbers corresponding to the positions of the planets in our solar system. At the very end, a single point was highlighted, a location near Jupiter's moon Europa. The revelation electrified the scientific community. Europa had long been considered one of the most promising places to search for extraterrestrial life, due to its subsurface ocean. Could it be that 3i/Atlas was pointing us there intentionally? If so, why? Theories exploded once again. Some believed it was directing humanity to a hidden artifact or base. Others feared it was warning us to stay away from something dangerous lurking beneath the icy surface. Plans were immediately set in motion to redirect existing spacecraft for a closer look. Probes originally destined for other missions were hastily reprogrammed, while new launches were scheduled with unprecedented speed. Every available resource was mobilized. Humanity was now racing not only to understand 3i/Atlas, but to investigate the mysterious location it had identified. As the object drew ever closer, its lights began to dim slightly, as though its energy reserves were depleting. Scientists debated whether this was a natural process or a deliberate act, perhaps a signal that its mission was nearing completion. Some even speculated that 3i/Atlas might self-destruct after closest approach, leaving only its message behind. If that were true, the coming days would be our only chance to witness and interact with it directly. In the midst of this frenzy, Dr. Singh made a startling discovery. Analyzing the latest data, she realized that the secondary chaotic pulses, the ones resembling a distress call, had shifted in frequency. When mapped against the known positions of nearby stars, they formed a trajectory. This trajectory didn't point away from Earth. It pointed directly toward the outer edge of the solar system, into the cold, dark void beyond Pluto. Whatever danger 3I/Atlas might be fleeing from, it wasn't out there among the distant stars. It was coming this way. The realization was terrifying. Humanity might not just be encountering another civilization. We might be standing on the threshold of a cosmic conflict we barely understood. And with only 6 days remaining before closest approach, there was little time to prepare. The discovery that the chaotic pulses might represent a trajectory pointing toward the outer edge of the solar system changed everything. It was no longer just about understanding 3I/Atlas. Now, there was the terrifying possibility that something or someone was following it. The object might not simply be an explorer or a messenger. It could be a fugitive, fleeing from a far greater force. And that force, whatever it was, might already be on its way toward Earth. Within hours, Operation Sentinel convened an emergency summit. Leaders from every major spacefaring nation joined via encrypted channels. The mood was tense and electrified with urgency. Military strategists, astrophysicists, and political advisors sat shoulder to shoulder, trying to grasp the enormity of what was happening. No one dared to speak the word war, but it hung heavily in the air. If an advanced civilization was approaching, the idea of defending Earth seemed absurd, yet preparation was unavoidable. Dr. Singh stood before the assembly, her face pale but resolute. She presented the data, showing the pattern of the chaotic pulses overlaid with the star map. The alignment was undeniable. She said, "This is not random," she said, her voice steady. "It's a path, a direct route from the outer darkness to here. Whatever 3I/Atlas is, it's been running for a long time. And now whatever it was fleeing from knows where we are."
A ripple of unease swept through the room. Delegates exchanged grim looks as the implications sank in. Earth was no longer just an observer of a cosmic drama. It was now a potential stage for its next act. Some argued for immediate global disclosure, believing the public had a right to know. Others insisted on secrecy, fearing that widespread panic would destroy societal stability. For now, the decision was made to keep the full details classified, though rumors were already spreading through unofficial channels. While politicians debated, the Decipher team continued their frantic work. They were now convinced that 3I/ATS was not just communicating with Earth, but actively guiding humanity toward a specific course of action. The highlighted coordinates near Europa seemed to be a crucial clue. Perhaps whatever was hidden there could help defend against the coming threat, or explain the nature of the pursuers. Time was the enemy. With only 5 days left before closest approach, every second counted. NASA announced that a probe, initially designed for a deep space mission years away, would be repurposed and launched immediately. Engineers worked around the clock, stripping down systems, reprogramming software, and preparing a rocket for a lightning-fast departure. Other space agencies contributed resources, pooling their expertise in a rare display of true global cooperation. For once, humanity was united not by politics or commerce, but survival itself. Meanwhile, the public narrative continued to evolve. Although the full truth was hidden, enough information had leaked to fuel rampant speculation. Social media erupted with theories ranging from benevolent cosmic guardians to impending alien invasions. Religious groups experienced a surge of activity, with some proclaiming the event as a sign of divine prophecy, while others warned of apocalyptic doom. In certain regions, mass gatherings turned into vigils, with millions staring at the night sky in collective anticipation. The world had never felt so small, so fragile, and so connected. Webb's images now showed unprecedented detail. The panels covering 3I/ETS's surface were shifting, rearranging themselves like the petals of a mechanical flower. The lights pulsed more rapidly, almost frantically, as though the object were expending its final reserves of energy. This behavior reinforced Dr. Singh's earlier theory. 3I/ETS was in distress. Perhaps it was trying to transfer its remaining knowledge to humanity before it was too late. Dr. Alvarez, still studying the chemical code-like sequences embedded in the messages, made a stunning breakthrough. Late one night, he noticed that certain patterns corresponded exactly to the molecular structure of DNA. Specifically, the sequences matched the fundamental building blocks of life as it existed on Earth. Shocked, he ran the data again and again, but the result was always the same. "It's showing us, he whispered. The implication was staggering. Whoever had sent the message knew about life on Earth. They had either observed it directly or possessed records dating back millennia. This revelation suggested that 3I/ETS, or those who created it, had been aware of humanity for a very long time. The task force faced a chilling new question. Was Earth being contacted for the first time or merely rediscovered? If these messages were part of an ancient surveillance network, humanity's place in the universe might not be that of a bold explorer, but rather a species under observation, perhaps even cultivation. The philosophical implications were almost as overwhelming as the practical ones. As this realization spread through Operation Sentinel, the object's lights abruptly shifted again. This time, the pulses formed a clear, repeating pattern, one unmistakable to any human observer. A countdown. The numbers ticked downward relentlessly, visible in both the light sequences and the accompanying radio emissions. Whatever was about to happen would occur precisely when the countdown reached 0, coinciding with the moment of closest approach. Panic rippled through the command center. Was this a warning or a threat? A promise or a farewell? As the countdown continued, preparations on Earth intensified. The probe launched toward Europa went forward in record time, its trajectory calculated to intercept the icy moon within weeks. While it would not arrive before 3I/ETS's closest approach, it represented humanity's first tangible step toward uncovering the deeper mystery. Meanwhile, military satellites were repositioned to monitor the skies, though everyone knew they would be useless against advanced technology. With 4 days remaining, a surprising development occurred. Amateur astronomers across the world reported seeing faint, flickering points of light far beyond Pluto's orbit. At first, these sightings were dismissed as glitches or false positives, but as more reports came in, a grim pattern emerged. The lights were moving, slowly but steadily, toward the inner solar system, precisely along the trajectory predicted by the chaotic pulses. The pursuers were real, and they were coming. The revelation leaked almost immediately, igniting global chaos. Stock markets crashed, governments declared states of emergency, and religious movements erupted in both fear and ecstatic fervor. On the streets, people alternated between awe and terror, unsure whether to prepare for salvation or destruction. In the command center, Dr. Singh and her colleagues stared at the new data in silence. The pursuing objects were still too distant to resolve clearly, but their movement was unmistakable. "We're not ready for this," Singh said quietly, her voice breaking. "We've had centuries to prepare for contact, and we wasted them all fighting each other." Despite the despair, a few voices urged calm. Dr. Alvarez reminded the team that they still didn't know the pursuers' intentions. "For all we know, they're here to help. We can't assume hostility just because we don't understand." His words offered a glimmer of hope, though few were fully convinced. 3 days remained. The countdown from 3I at last now blazed like a cosmic beacon.
visible even to high-powered amateur telescopes. The optic's lights had grown erratic, sometimes dimming almost to nothing before flaring back with blinding brilliance. Scientists speculated that it was reaching the end of its operational lifespan, perhaps exhausting the last of its power to complete its mission. If so, the moment of closest approach might also be its final act. Governments faced a harrowing decision. Some advocated sending a manned mission, a direct attempt to intercept 3I Atlas before it left the solar system forever. Others warned that such a mission would almost certainly fail and could provoke unintended consequences. In the end, the decision was made to wait and observe. Humanity would take no aggressive action until more was understood. It was a fragile hope, but it was all they had. As the final days ticked away, humanity's collective focus narrowed to a single point in the sky. All across the globe, people gathered on rooftops, beaches, and mountaintops, straining to glimpse the mysterious visitor. Religious leaders held mass vigils. Musicians performed impromptu concerts under the stars. In one particularly moving moment, the entire population of a small island nation gathered on its highest hill, holding hands in silent unity as the lights of 3I Atlas twinkled above. 2 days before closest approach, the Webb telescope recorded an astonishing event. The panels on 3I Atlas' surface began to separate completely, drifting outward like petals falling from a flower. Beneath them lay a glowing core of unimaginable complexity, radiating energy and wavelengths never before seen. The countdown continued, now accompanied by a deep, resonant hum picked up by Earth's most sensitive instruments. The object was preparing for something monumental. The Decipher team worked without sleep, desperate to understand the final messages. In a moment of breakthrough, Dr. Alvarez realized that the countdown numbers themselves contained a hidden code. When analyzed mathematically, they formed a map, not of our solar system, but of a region of space far beyond. At its center was a massive void, a place devoid of stars. Alvarez's face went pale. "This isn't just a map," he whispered. "It's a warning. Something's coming from there." The room fell silent. The chaotic pulses, the distress signals, the pursuing lights, it all fit together. 3I Atlas wasn't just fleeing randomly. It had been chased across interstellar space, desperately trying to reach a safe harbor. And now, whatever it was fleeing from had followed it here. With less than 48 hours remaining, humanity finally understood the stakes. This wasn't merely first contact. It was the prelude to a cosmic event that could determine the fate of Earth itself. As the night stretched on, the Webb telescope continued its silent vigil, capturing data on 3I Atlas with unrelenting precision. Scientists stared at the monitors, eyes fixed on the flickering light signatures coming from this enigmatic interstellar traveler. At first, they wondered if it was a trick of cosmic dust, a lens flare, or some natural phenomenon yet to be cataloged. But the patterns persisted, too regular, too deliberate, too strange to dismiss. Every new observation deepened the mystery. The lights didn't behave like anything we had documented in deep space. They weren't like the erratic flashes of pulsars or the steady glow of distant stars. These were rhythmic, almost like signals, echoes from a mind beyond our understanding. Around the world, the news spread like wildfire. Headlines screamed about mysterious lights beyond the solar system, and the public was captivated. Some claimed it was evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence, while others insisted that it had to be some rare cosmic event we simply hadn't encountered before. Scientists tried to stay grounded, but even the most skeptical among them felt the weight of the unknown pressing in. The Webb telescope, humanity's most advanced eye in the cosmos, had given us a front-row seat to a mystery unlike any other. And as each day passed, 3I Atlas moved closer, drifting silently through the void, carrying with it questions humanity had never dared to ask. The deeper the research teams dove, the stranger things became. Infrared readings revealed fluctuations in heat signatures around the object, almost as if something on its surface was generating energy. Radio telescopes picked up faint signals in unusual frequencies, patterns that didn't align with the background noise of space. For decades, scientists had speculated about technosignatures, evidence of alien technology detectable across light years. Could this be it? Were we witnessing the first undeniable sign that we were not alone? Governments scrambled for answers. Secret meetings were held. Data was shared across agencies that normally guarded information like treasure. The implications were staggering. If these lights were artificial, it would change everything. Our place in the universe, our understanding of life itself, even the trajectory of human civilization. And then something even more startling happened. Amateur astronomers, armed with backyard telescopes and a passion for discovery, began reporting the same lights. They weren't as clear as Webb's images, of course, but the fact that ordinary people could now see them only fueled the growing frenzy. Online forums erupted with theories. Some believed that 3I Atlas was a derelict spacecraft from a long-dead civilization. Others thought it might be an interstellar probe, scanning the galaxy just as we had once dreamed of doing with projects like Voyager and Pioneer. A few even suggested that it was alive, a cosmic organism unlike anything we could imagine. The scientific community, caught between excitement and caution, urged patience. More data was needed, more observations, more time to unravel a mystery that seemed to grow deeper with each passing night.
But time was the one thing they didn't have, because 3I Atlas was moving fast. Faster than any known asteroid or comet passing through our solar system. It wasn't in orbit. It wasn't slowing down. It was on a trajectory that defied expectations, and its path would soon carry it beyond the reach of even our most powerful instruments. The clock was ticking. Humanity had a narrow window to study this cosmic visitor before it vanished back into the darkness of interstellar space, taking its secrets with it. And so, as the Webb telescope gathered every photon of light, every faint signal, every shred of data, the world waited. The lights on 3I Atlas continued to flicker in patterns no one could explain. Was it random? Was it natural? Or was it something else? Something that would finally answer the oldest question humanity had ever asked. The deeper the scientific teams looked into the data, the more troubling it became. Patterns began to emerge within the light signals detected by the Webb telescope. Patterns that didn't fit with any natural phenomenon previously recorded. At first, analysts suspected equipment errors or calibration issues. They ran diagnostics, double-checked every piece of software, and even brought in outside experts to verify the readings. But there were no errors. The lights were real, and they were behaving in a way that defied explanation. Some of the brightest minds in astrophysics began to entertain a theory that only months before they would have dismissed as science fiction. The light emissions weren't random. They were structured, almost like a code. As this possibility began to circulate within inner scientific circles, tensions grew. If these lights were indeed a form of communication, or worse, a sign of advanced technology, the implications were staggering. Such a discovery would fundamentally alter humanity's understanding of its place in the cosmos. But with stakes this high, no one wanted to be the first to make a bold claim and be proven wrong. Behind closed doors, top research institutions debated how to proceed. Government agencies around the world began taking a keen interest, and classified briefings were held at the highest levels. Publicly, the official narrative was cautious. Press releases spoke of unusual readings and anomalous data, careful to avoid sensationalism. But in private, the conversations were far more urgent. Some experts pointed to the rhythmic nature of the light pulses. They bore a strange similarity to prime numbers, sequences that are often considered a universal language for communicating with extraterrestrial intelligence. This was no ordinary cosmic event. If the data was correct, it could represent humanity's first confirmed encounter with an alien signal. As the news slowly leaked out to the public, the world was gripped by a wave of excitement, fear, and speculation. social media platforms exploded with theories. Were these lights a beacon, a warning, or perhaps a test to see if anyone out there was intelligent enough to notice? Meanwhile, 3i Atlas continued its journey, moving at an astonishing velocity through our solar system. Its path suggested that it had not been captured by the sun's gravity. This wasn't a comet in the traditional sense. It was simply passing through, like an interstellar messenger on a predetermined route. The Webb telescope was pushed to its limits as it gathered more data, capturing high-resolution images and detailed spectrographic readings. Scientists worked around the clock knowing that they only had a limited window of time before the object slipped beyond the reach of our instruments forever. Then, a breakthrough came. Researchers noticed subtle changes in the light patterns at specific intervals, as if the object was responding to something. A small team proposed an audacious experiment, sending a carefully crafted radio signal directly toward 3i Atlas. The idea was controversial. Some argued that it was too dangerous to reveal our presence to an unknown intelligence. Others countered that any civilization capable of creating lights like these likely already knew of our existence. After days of heated debate, the experiment was approved. The transmission was sent. And then, nothing. For hours, the team waited, their eyes fixed on the monitors. No response, no change in the light patterns. Many began to assume the experiment had failed. Perhaps the object wasn't artificial after all. But just as hope was fading, something extraordinary happened. The lights on 3i Atlas shifted. For the first time, the pulses came in a new configuration, one that perfectly matched the signal Earth had just transmitted. Panic and exhilaration rippled through the scientific community. There was no longer any room for doubt. This was intelligent. This was deliberate. The discovery sent shockwaves around the globe. Governments scrambled to control the narrative, but it was too late. Amateur astronomers and independent researchers had been monitoring the same light patterns, and many had captured the shift in real time. The world now faced a terrifying question. If this was indeed a form of communication, what was the message? As the data poured in, one thing became clear. This was no coincidence. The lights on 3i Atlas were responding to humanity's signal. For the first time in history, there was undeniable evidence that something, or someone, out there had noticed us. The scientific community was in uproar. While some researchers celebrated the discovery as the greatest achievement of mankind, others were deeply concerned. What kind of intelligence were they dealing with? And why had this object entered our solar system at this exact moment in time? The response pattern itself was even more unsettling. At first glance, it seemed like a simple reply, but deeper analysis revealed layers of complexity. Mathematicians, linguists, and cryptographers from across the globe joined forces to decipher what they were seeing. What emerged was a chilling realization. The light sequence wasn't random communication, it was structured in a way that strongly resembled an invitation.
But an invitation to what? Speculation ran rampant. Some believed the lights were a friendly gesture, a way of saying, "We are here," and inviting us to engage in dialogue. Others feared a darker possibility, a trap. What if this wasn't an invitation, but a summons, or even a challenge? Governments faced unprecedented pressure. Public opinion was split between excitement and terror. Protests erupted in major cities, with some demanding full transparency from world leaders, while others urged immediate disengagement. In certain corners of the internet, conspiracy theories flourished. As chaos unfolded on Earth, the Webb telescope continued to focus on 3i Atlas. New readings painted an even stranger picture. The object's surface appeared to be covered in reflective panels, possibly metallic, possibly something far more advanced. Unlike natural asteroids, it showed no signs of impact craters or irregular formations. Its shape was eerily smooth, almost engineered. And then,
came the most startling discovery yet. Infrared scans detected a heat signature deep within the object, far too concentrated to be explained by sunlight or friction alone. Something inside 3i Atlas was generating energy, perhaps even operating machinery. At this point, even the most skeptical voices began to fall silent. The evidence was overwhelming. This was no random piece of cosmic debris. It was an artifact. As the object drew closer to the inner solar system, a new phenomenon occurred. The lights intensified, forming sequences that grew more elaborate by the hour. They seemed to pulse in sync with Earth's radio transmissions, as though the intelligence behind them were learning, adapting. In a classified briefing, one scientist dared to voice a possibility that chilled the room. She said, "What if they're not just responding to us? What if they're studying us, preparing for something?" This statement sparked fierce debate among global leaders. Some pushed for further communication attempts, while others demanded military readiness. There were even whispers of plans to destroy the object before it could approach any closer, though no one knew if such an attempt would even be possible. Meanwhile, civilian astronomers and space enthusiasts continued their own monitoring efforts. With 3i Atlas now visible to certain high-powered amateur telescopes, countless images and videos began circulating online. Many were dismissed as hoaxes, but some were confirmed to be genuine, showing the strange flickering patterns in haunting clarity. The world was transfixed. Television broadcasts provided round-the-clock coverage. News anchors spoke in hushed tones as they relayed the latest developments. Even those who had never cared about space exploration suddenly found themselves glued to screens, unable to look away from the mystery unfolding above. Then, in a moment that would be etched into history forever, the lights formed a pattern so distinct, so deliberate, that it sent shockwaves through the scientific community. It was unmistakably mathematical, a complex sequence of numbers that corresponded to fundamental constants of the universe, values that any advanced civilization would recognize. This wasn't just proof of intelligence, it was proof of shared knowledge. And yet, as thrilling as this was, the message carried an undercurrent of menace. Some experts interpreted the pattern as a simple declaration of existence. Others saw it as a warning. One prominent cryptographer went so far as to call it a cosmic countdown. As this theory spread, panic began to take hold. Markets plunged, governments mobilized emergency response plans, and religious leaders issued urgent statements to their followers. For many, the mystery of 3i Atlas had transformed from awe-inspiring discovery to existential threat. But while the world spiraled into fear, a small group of scientists pressed forward, determined to uncover the truth. Working in secret, they decoded what they believed to be the next layer of the message, a fragment of information that hinted at a location, not in deep space, but right here, within our own solar system. Could it be that the lights were pointing to something hidden nearby? As they cross-referenced the data, a disturbing possibility emerged. The coordinates seemed to align with a point near Jupiter's orbit, a region of space that had been largely ignored until now. Was this where the object was headed? Or was something already waiting for it there? The scientists knew they had little time to act, with 3i Atlas hurtling through the void at unprecedented speed. Every second brought it closer to whatever fate awaited it. The Webb telescope captured one final, haunting image, a perfect alignment of lights, burning brightly against the cold darkness of space. It was the clearest signal yet, and no one on Earth was ready for what came next. The realization that the coordinates pointed near Jupiter sent shockwaves through the private scientific group. At first, they assumed it must be an error in their calculations. Jupiter had been studied for centuries by countless missions and telescopes. How could something significant have been hiding there, unnoticed, all this time? But the numbers didn't lie. When they rechecked the sequence of lights from 3i Atlas, they found the same reference embedded again and again, like a signature woven into a code. Whatever intelligence was behind this phenomenon wasn't just passing through our solar system. It was directing humanity's attention to that precise region of space. As news of the discovery began to leak,
global space agencies went into overdrive. The Webb telescope was redirected to focus on the coordinates, while other instruments, including the Hubble and even ground-based observatories, joined the effort. For weeks, teams across the globe worked tirelessly, scanning the area for any anomalies. What they found left them speechless. There, nestled within the swirling chaos of Jupiter's many moons, was a faint, unnatural glow. It wasn't bright enough to be mistaken for a star or a comet. It was something entirely different, emitting a steady signal that pulsed in perfect synchronization with the lights on 3I ATS.
The implications were terrifying. If this glow represented another structure, another artifact, then it meant 3I ATS wasn't acting alone. It wasn't just a rogue traveler. It was part of something larger. Perhaps a network, perhaps a system, perhaps a trap. Debates erupted among scientists and world leaders alike. Some argue that this was proof of an ancient alien outpost, left behind eons ago by a civilization so advanced that we were mere insects by comparison. Others feared that the glow was a beacon, summoning something far more powerful than humanity could defend against. The object's speed increased. Calculations showed that in just a matter of weeks, 3I ATS would pass dangerously close to the Jupiter system. If the lights truly represented a form of communication, this flyby could trigger an event unlike anything our species had ever witnessed. And then, just when the tension seemed unbearable, another anomaly appeared. The glow near Jupiter began to shift, morphing into complex geometric patterns. These formations matched certain ancient symbols found in archaeological sites across Earth, markings that had long been dismissed as myth or coincidence. Historians and linguists were brought in to analyze the connection. The parallels were undeniable. Somehow, whomever or whatever created these signals had been influencing Earth for thousands of years, leaving behind clues that humanity was only now beginning to piece together. The discovery caused a philosophical and spiritual crisis across the globe. Religions scrambled to interpret the revelations. Some leaders proclaimed that this was evidence of divine beings, while others denounced the lights as a deception meant to mislead humanity. But amidst the chaos, the data continued to speak for itself. As 3I ATS approached the outer edges of Jupiter's gravitational influence, the Webb telescope captured images that stunned even the most hardened scientists. The object's lights flared brilliantly, illuminating an intricate surface design that could no longer be mistaken for anything natural. It was an engineered structure, massive, precise, and utterly alien. Panels appeared to open and close along its surface, releasing bursts of energy into the surrounding void. Some theorized these were propulsion systems, while others believed they might be instruments for scanning and collecting data. Whatever their purpose, they were unlike any technology humanity had ever imagined. The closer 3I ATS came to Jupiter, the stronger the connection between it and the mysterious glow became. The patterns of light began to align perfectly, as though two separate entities were now working in harmony. This synchronization sparked a terrifying realization among a select few scientists. What if it's not just communicating with us? What if it's communicating with something else? Something already waiting out there? The room fell silent. No one wanted to consider the possibility, but the evidence was becoming impossible to ignore. As humanity watched helplessly, the world's militaries began to mobilize. Defense systems were tested, emergency plans were enacted, and entire regions were placed on high alert. Even though no weapon on Earth was likely to make any difference, leaders were unwilling to sit idly by as this cosmic enigma approached. The public, meanwhile, was caught in a storm of fear and fascination. News outlets ran nonstop coverage, showing animations of 3I ATS hurtling toward the Jupiter system. Social media was flooded with amateur theories, wild predictions, and fabricated footage. And yet, amid the noise, there were still those who tried to focus on the truth. A small team of linguists, mathematicians, and physicists worked around the clock, attempting to decode the full message embedded in the light patterns. Every breakthrough brought them closer to understanding, but with each new discovery, their dread grew. The most recent sequence they unraveled seemed to reference a timeline, a series of intervals counting down to a specific moment in the near future. If their calculations were correct, that moment would coincide precisely with 3I ATS's closest approach to the Jupiter system. In other words, something was going to happen when the object reached its destination. What that event might be, no one could say. As the countdown grew shorter, the atmosphere on Earth reached a fever pitch. Every news channel was locked on the unfolding drama, while social media became a battleground of theories, hoaxes, and genuine fear. The lights of 3I ATS, once just a strange curiosity to a small group of scientists, had now become the single most important focus of human civilization. Governments began to release carefully worded statements meant to calm the public, but they only added fuel to the fire. The carefully chosen language, an anomalous object, unprecedented phenomenon, no immediate threats, failed to hide the urgency in their actions. Observatories were being militarized, satellites repurposed, and entire fleets were positioned in space to monitor the event. Meanwhile, the Webb telescope was pushed beyond anything it had been designed for. Its engineers worked tirelessly, upgrading software and recalibrating systems so it could continue capturing every possible detail. What Webb revealed next would haunt humanity forever. The surface of 3I ATS was changing. Massive panels were sliding apart, rearranging themselves like the shifting pieces of a mechanical puzzle. These movements weren't random. They followed precise patterns, almost as if the object was preparing for a specific function. And then came the sound. For the first time, sensitive radio instruments picked up a low-frequency hum emanating from the object. It wasn't just noise. It carried a strange resonance that seemed to interact with Earth's own magnetic field. Entire regions experienced faint disturbances in communication systems, and some people even reported hearing an unexplainable vibration in their minds, as though the signal was somehow bypassing technology altogether and speaking directly to them. These accounts were dismissed at first, until the number of reports became too great to ignore. From small villages to bustling cities, individuals across the globe described similar sensations, of flashes of light in their vision, strange dreams, and an overwhelming feeling of being watched.
Scientists struggle to explain this phenomenon. Some theorize that the object was broadcasting a form of communication beyond our comprehension, something designed not for machines, but for biological minds. If that were true, it meant the intelligence behind 3I Atlas understood far more about humanity than anyone was prepared to admit. The tension escalated further when the mysterious glow near Jupiter intensified dramatically. Webb's images revealed that the glow wasn't a single point of light at all. It was a vast circular structure, partially hidden by the gas giant's swirling atmosphere. Its scale was unimaginable, dwarfing anything built by human hands. The object's design was intricate and symmetrical, suggesting a level of engineering that bordered on the divine. As 3I Atlas approached, its lights synchronized perfectly with the glow, creating a breathtaking display of interstellar coordination. The two entities were clearly linked, and their alignment signaled that whatever event was about to occur was drawing near. In secret briefings, a handful of scientists proposed a radical theory. What if 3I Atlas isn't the visitor? What if it's the key? A device meant to activate something far older, something that's been waiting in our solar system for millennia. The idea was met with stunned silence. If true, it meant humanity had been living alongside a hidden artifact of unimaginable power, and only now was it awakening. As the countdown reached its final days, the world descended into chaos. Markets crashed, governments declared states of emergency, religious leaders called for mass gatherings of prayer and reflection, while doomsday cults proclaimed that the end of the world was imminent. In some cities, riots broke out as fear overwhelmed reason. And through it all, the lights continued their relentless, rhythmic pulse.
The small team of codebreakers working on the message finally achieved a partial translation. What they discovered sent shivers down their spines. The sequence wasn't merely a countdown. It was a set of instructions. Step by step, the lights were guiding the activation of a process far beyond human understanding. The final step, they realized, would occur precisely at the moment when 3I Atlas reached its closest point to Jupiter. The implications were horrifying. Whatever was about to happen, it wasn't random. It was deliberate, planned, and inevitable. Even as the public remained unaware of the full truth, whispers of the translation began to spread among high-level officials. Some urged immediate action, proposing plans to destroy the object with nuclear weapons or redirect it using experimental propulsion systems. But these ideas were quickly dismissed. The energy output measured from 3I Atlas was so immense that any human weapon would be like a grain of sand against a mountain. There was nothing humanity could do but watch. The night before the predicted event, the Webb telescope captured one final chilling image. The lights on 3I Atlas formed a perfect spiral, expanding outward like a cosmic eye staring directly at Earth. At the same moment, the glow near Jupiter split into concentric rings, each one rotating at a different speed. The synchronization was perfect, as though two components of a machine were finally connecting. On Earth, millions of people around the world stood outside staring at the night sky. For the first time, many could see the strange light show with their own eyes. A collective hush fell over the planet as humanity realized they were witnessing history unfold. And then, precisely at the calculated moment, everything changed. The hours before the event were unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. Cities stood eerily still, their usual noise replaced by an anxious quiet that seemed to seep into every street and home. Skyscrapers that once symbolized progress now felt like fragile monuments waiting to be swept away by forces beyond comprehension. Families gathered in living rooms, their faces lit by the cold glow of television screens as anchors struggled to find the right words. Governments urged calm, but their strained voices betrayed their fear. Even world leaders, usually so composed, appeared visibly shaken during their rare, carefully controlled broadcast. In some parts of the world, silence wasn't an option. Massive crowds flooded public squares, chanting prayers, songs, and messages of hope. Some carried signs pleading with the unknown intelligence behind 3I Atlas. "We come in peace. Please spare Earth." Others prepared for the worst, gathering supplies in bunkers, while a few desperate groups attempted to flee to remote locations. Though, deep down, everyone knew there was nowhere to hide. Meanwhile, the Webb telescope continued its relentless watch. Its last transmissions painted a picture so staggering that bioscientists barely had words to describe it. The glow near Jupiter had expanded dramatically, now spanning thousands of miles. Webb's infrared imaging revealed that it wasn't just a random structure. It was machinery, vast, precise, and ancient. Giant rings rotated within one another, each inscribed with strange patterns that seemed almost mathematical. And at the heart of it all, an enormous core pulsed with energy, radiating a power level beyond anything human civilization had ever measured. 3I Atlas was now only hours away from full alignment. And then came the first undeniable sign of contact. Sensitive radio receivers around the world picked up a sudden burst of energy. Not a random pulse, but a structured signal. The data was so complex that even the fastest supercomputers struggled to process it. But buried within the chaos was something unmistakable: a voice. At first, it was faint, distorted beyond recognition. But as teams worked to filter the noise, a strange rhythmic tone began to emerge. It wasn't speaking in any human language, yet somehow those who heard it felt as though it was addressing them directly. Some described it as soothing, others as terrifying. A few even collapsed to the ground, overwhelmed by visions they couldn't explain. Visions of star systems, alien landscapes, and machines the size of worlds. The translation team at NASA worked tirelessly, running algorithms to decipher the message. Finally, after hours of frantic effort, they managed to reconstruct a fragment of what the voice was saying. The words
when read aloud, sent chills through the room. The gates is opening. Prepare for transition. The scientists stared at one another in stunned silence. A gate? Transition to what? The implications were almost too vast to comprehend. As this discovery spread to world leaders, emergency meetings were held across the globe. Some leaders argued for immediate disclosure to the public, while others insisted on withholding the information to prevent mass hysteria. But it was already too late. At that very moment, the entire world saw it for themselves. In the night sky, just above Jupiter, the glow suddenly intensified to blinding levels. A colossal beam of light shot outward, stretching across space like a bridge between worlds. And 3-I-ATLAS responded. Its surface shifted violently, panels unfolding and rearranging as if the object were transforming. What had once looked like a mysterious asteroid now resembled an intricate spacecraft, its lights blazing in perfect synchrony with the glowing structure near Jupiter. Billions of people gasped as live feeds captured this breathtaking transformation. It was undeniable now. This was no natural object. It was a machine, a vessel, built by an intelligence far older and more advanced than anything humanity had ever known. Then, without warning, every screen on Earth went black. Phones, televisions, satellites, every form of digital communication suddenly displayed the same image. A single, pulsating symbol that none had seen before. It resembled a spiral galaxy encased within a circle, surrounded by glyphs that seemed to shift and flow like living text. And then, a voice filled the silence. This time, it was clear and unmistakable. It wasn't speaking through radios or satellites. It was inside every mind on Earth, resonating directly within the human brain. You are not alone. The cycle ends, and the passage begins. Across the world, people screamed, wept, or fell to their knees. For the first time in history, every human being heard the same message simultaneously, delivered by a consciousness beyond comprehension. The countdown reached its final seconds. On the Webb telescope, the massive structure near Jupiter locked into perfect alignment. The beam of light intensified, creating a swirling vortex at its center, an opening so vast it could swallow entire planets. And 3-I-ATLAS moved directly into position, hovering at the mouth of this cosmic gateway. On Earth, seismic sensors went wild as strange energy waves rippled through the planet's core. The sky itself seemed to warp and shimmer, stars bending and twisting as though reality were being rewritten. And then, in a single blinding flash, it happened. When the flash subsided, there was a moment of total silence, a stillness so profound that it felt as though the universe itself had paused to take a breath. Then came the sound, a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through the very fabric of space-time. It wasn't coming from the sky, or the ground, or any physical source. It was everywhere, inside every mind, every molecule, a haunting reminder that reality had been fundamentally altered. The Webb telescope, though partially blinded by the burst, managed to capture fragments of the event. The massive structure near Jupiter had completely vanished, leaving behind only a faint ring of distorted light, like the afterimage of a dream. And 3-I-ATLAS? It was gone. In its place was something no one could have predicted. A tearing wound in space,
a swirling anomaly of shifting colors and darkness pulsing like a living thing. Astronomers stared in awe and horror as they realized what they were seeing. This wasn't just a portal, it was a doorway to another dimension, a place where the rules of physics no longer applied. Data poured in at a staggering rate, and with it came a horrifying realization. The anomaly wasn't stable. It was growing. Within hours, its gravitational influence began to disrupt Jupiter's orbit. Storms on the gas giant intensified to unimaginable levels, while its moons were yanked into chaotic, deadly paths. If left unchecked, the disturbance would ripple outward, destabilizing the entire solar system. Panic swept through mission control centers worldwide. Scientists debated frantically, some insisting this was part of a controlled process, while others warned it could lead to the total destruction of Earth. Meanwhile, strange phenomena began to occur on our own planet. Auroras of impossible colors danced across skies where no auroras should exist. Compasses spun wildly. Entire regions experienced moments of weightlessness, as though gravity itself were flickering. And in the middle of it all, humans began to experience shared visions, dreams of alien landscapes, titanic machines, and cities floating in endless voids. Religious leaders claimed it was divine revelation. Neuroscientists argued it was a side effect of the alien transmission. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. Whatever intelligence controlled 3-I-ATLAS was preparing us for something monumental. Governments scrambled to coordinate a response. The United Nations declared a state of global emergency, suspending all conflicts, and united under a single directive: survival. Vast resources were poured into understanding the anomaly. The world's most powerful telescopes, including Webb, were linked together into a single network, forming what scientists called the unified eye. Their mission: track the gateway's growth and decode the final remnants of the alien signal. And then, deep within the data, a new pattern emerged, one that sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Hidden in the background noise of the transmission was a star map. It depicted dozens of systems across the galaxy, connected by glowing pathways. At the very center of the map was a symbol identical to the one that had appeared on every screen during the global blackout. When astronomers cross-referenced the map with known data, they realized with a mixture of awe and dread that the pathways weren't random. They formed a network of gateways, each connected to the others like nodes in an interstellar web.
3I/Atlas hadn't just opened the portal near Jupiter. It had activated a link in a galaxy-spanning transportation system, built by a civilization so ancient and powerful that even their ruins could rewrite the laws of physics. As this revelation spread, the debate shifted from fear to strategy. Some scientists argued that humanity should send a mission through the gateway to discover who or what had built it. Others warned that doing so could trigger catastrophic consequences. If an advanced species had abandoned these gateways, it might have been for a very good reason. But before any decision could be made, events took a terrifying turn. The anomaly near Jupiter began to emit pulses of energy at regular intervals. With each pulse, the strange phenomena on Earth grew more intense. Entire cities experienced sudden blackouts as power grids collapsed under the strain of electromagnetic interference. Earthquakes struck in places that had been geologically stable for millennia. Animals fled en masse, sensing a danger humans couldn't yet comprehend. And then came the final undeniable proof that humanity was no longer alone.
astronomers detected objects emerging from the gateway. At first, they appeared as faint blips on radar, moving in perfect formation. But as they drew closer, Webb's infrared sensors captured their true nature. Ships, sleek, massive, and unmistakably artificial. The fleet moved with terrifying precision, positioning themselves between the anomaly and Jupiter's orbit. Whatever they were, they clearly had a purpose. The world watched in paralyzed silence as live feeds broadcast the arrival of these alien vessels. For the first time in history, humanity had a visual confirmation of an extraterrestrial civilization, one so advanced that even their smallest craft dwarfed Earth's largest space stations. Then one of the ships broke formation and moved toward Earth. As it approached, it emitted a focused beam of light that enveloped the planet's atmosphere. Satellites scrambled to analyze it, but their systems were immediately overridden by a familiar symbol, the spiral galaxy within a circle. Once again, a voice filled every human mind simultaneously. The passage has begun. Your world will be integrated. The meaning was chillingly clear. This wasn't just a visit, it was an assimilation. On Earth, chaos erupted. Governments launched every defense system they had, but it was hopeless. Missiles were disabled mid-flight by forces they couldn't begin to understand. Entire militaries were rendered useless in an instant. And yet, the alien fleet did not attack. They simply waited, as though observing, judging, preparing for the next phase of their mysterious plan. Meanwhile, the anomaly expanded even further. Jupiter itself began to crack and fragment, its immense mass being drawn into the swirling vortex. If the process continued, Earth would inevitably be next. In the final hours before the critical moment, a small group of scientists made a desperate breakthrough. By analyzing the pulse intervals of the anomaly, they discovered a hidden layer of information: a countdown. The gateway wasn't just active, it was preparing to activate fully, linking not just our solar system, but potentially dozens of others in an instant. The realization hit them like a tidal wave. This wasn't merely a visitation. It was the opening move of a galaxy-wide event, one that had played out countless times before across untold civilizations. As the countdown ticked closer to zero, humanity stood at the brink of annihilation or transcendence. No one knew which it would be. And then, as the final minute began, the voice returned one last time. This time, it spoke a single, unmistakable phrase: "The choice is no longer yours." The world seemed to hold its breath as the final 60 seconds counted down. Every screen, every device, every human mind was synchronized with the same relentless ticking. The alien fleet hovered silently near the gateway, their colossal vessels glowing with an otherworldly brilliance. Earth oceans churned violently, tides rising higher than ever recorded. The sky itself began to ripple like liquid, stars bending and stretching as reality strained under forces it was never meant to endure. In mission control, chaos gave way to a stunned, reverent silence. The countdown was no longer just a number on a screen. Everyone could feel it vibrating in their bones, echoing in their thoughts. 50 seconds. The James Webb Telescope continued streaming data, its images flickering as cosmic radiation spiked beyond known limits. Scientists, their faces pale and trembling, realized they were no longer observing history, they were witnessing the birth of a new era. 40 seconds. The anomaly near Jupiter expanded exponentially. It no longer looked like a wound in space, but like a colossal eye, opening wider with each passing second. Deep within its swirling core, glimpses of other worlds could be seen. Alien landscapes bathed in strange light, massive structures floating in voids, and skies filled with stars humanity had never mapped. 30 seconds.
On Earth, the shared visions intensified. Billions of people saw the same overwhelming images. A galaxy-spanning network of gateways, civilizations rising and falling across eons. And at the center of it all, a towering intelligence, a being of pure energy, faceless yet infinitely aware. For a brief, fleeting moment, humanity understood. 3i/Atlas wasn't just a visitor. It was a harbinger, a tool of something far greater. And its purpose had never been to destroy. It had come to harvest. 20 seconds. The alien fleet adjusted its formation, creating a perfect circle around the anomaly. Beams of light connected their ships, forming a vast geometric pattern that pulsed in time with the countdown. It was a signal, a key unlocking the final phase of the process. 15 seconds. On the surface, chaos erupted. Some people fled to underground shelters, clinging to a futile hope of survival. Others gathered in open spaces, staring skyward with awe or despair, desperate to witness the moment when everything changed. And somewhere in the middle of it all, a child looked up and whispered a single word: beautiful. 10 seconds. The voice returned, now thunderous and absolute, resonating through every living mind. The passage opens. The integration begins. 9, 8, 7. The Earth trembled violently as gravity itself began to fluctuate. Mountains cracked, oceans boiled. The very air seemed to hum with uncontainable energy. 6, 5, 4. The anomaly reached its maximum size, now so massive that Jupiter itself was nearly swallowed whole. The planet's iconic Great Red Spot flickered and vanished, consumed by the swirling vortex. 3, 2, 1. A flash brighter than 1,000,000 suns engulfed the solar system. For an instant, there was nothing but light, pure, blinding, overwhelming. And then, silence. When vision returned, humanity found itself somewhere utterly alien. Earth still existed, but it was no longer in its familiar orbit around the sun. The sky above was filled with strange constellations, unfamiliar stars, and towering constructs that stretched beyond comprehension. The planet had been moved, relocated through the gateway to a vast interstellar network of worlds. The alien fleet hovered above, their purpose now clear. They weren't invaders, they were custodians, guiding entire civilizations through a process that had repeated itself countless times across the galaxy. But the truth was far more terrifying. Humanity was not the first to undergo this integration, and they would not be the last. In the aftermath, fragments of the alien message were finally decoded. It spoke of cycles spanning billions of years, of species uplifted and absorbed into a collective intelligence beyond mortal understanding. To the beings who built the gateways, individuality was irrelevant. Planets were merely pieces on a cosmic board, moved and merged according to a plan too vast for human minds to grasp. The final line of the message was the most haunting of all. You are part of us now. In the weeks that followed, humanity struggled to comprehend its new reality. Some embraced the change, seeing it as a chance to join a greater whole. Others resisted, vowing to fight for independence even against a foe they couldn't begin to comprehend. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. There was no going back. As the James Webb Telescope, now orbiting an entirely different star system, sent its first images of this strange new galaxy, a chilling detail emerged. In the distance, barely visible against the cosmic backdrop, another gateway was opening, and through it, something even larger was coming. The mystery of 3i/ATLS had been solved. But the true story, the story of humanity's place in the vast machinery of the universe, was only just beginning. And somewhere, far beyond human perception, a voice whispered in the void, "The cycle continues."